Adam, let's talk a little football. Adam, breaking news. You have it. What is it? Well, it was breaking yesterday.
Yeah.
We had heard this might happen. We thought this was the case.
Tar Heel season football opener, as we know, will be against TCU, Labor Day weekend, not on Saturday in that prime Monday night, Labor Day evening slot, Carolina and the Horned Frogs under the lights at Kenan Stadium on that Monday.
So Monday, Labor Day itself, Carolina playing TCU to open the season.
And open the Bill Belichick era.
Yeah, the only game going on that evening. There will be a lot of attention on that game, Adam.
Most anticipated Tar Heel football game since what? One of those Thursday night games at Kenan, maybe?
The only ones I can think of since the Florida State game in 97 would be the first Thursday night game, but I'm still not sure this is to that level. I would throw in there the second game of the second Mac Brown tenure after Carolina had beaten South Carolina in Charlotte, surprisingly, to open the year, and then we're playing Miami at home the next week. And ended up with a terrific game. Remember Sam Howell, I think, was it Toe Groves, who caught the fourth and like 13 or 15 on the final drive, and then Carolina to Daz Newsome caught the pass in the back corner of the end zone in the final second. And then people forget Miami then went and had a field goal opportunity to win the game, and it missed. But that game lived up to all the excitement. Those are the only two I can think of, Adam, and I don't think they're going to reach. I think this game is going to, by the time it gets here, I think this game is going to have more hype around it. Because it's going to be national hype. I think those games were Carolina hype because, first Thursday game, and that's back when having a Thursday game was a big deal. Now people like actively avoid, and you barely have Thursday games. And if you do, you play in the Sun Belt or something. Now, obviously, Friday is when the ACC network wants you to play your some unique games. But that's what Thursday was a big deal at Carolina because it never happened before. But really, that was a Carolina thing, just like the Miami game was a Carolina thing. This is the biggest national game Carolina has played at home for sure since that game against Florida State in 97. And the only other game that had the national interest that I can think of since then would be the ACC championship game in 15 against Clemson when Carolina had it won that game, and it was close. It would have had an outside shot of making the playoffs that year had it won that game. It would have been in the conversation for sure. So it's going to be crazy. I'm looking forward to it. Long way to go, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think the only other game would have been the LSU game.
Yeah, it would have been.
Which then turned into interest of a whole different kind. But that's sort of the story of Carolina football. Like, we can name all these games like, well, it could have been this game, but then this. I think you're exactly right that this TCU game is a game that casual Carolina fans want to attend in a way that they did not want to attend, say, that Miami game. That was Carolina football fans were excited about this. This is casually interested Carolina fans and just random people sitting by their televisions, which is why we've talked about this. That's why you get picked up for a game like this. Carolina is attractive in the ratings department now from sheer curiosity.
Yep.
What is going to happen? No one has any idea. Bill Belichick will be on the sideline of a college game. That's wacky. People want to see that. They will tune in for at least a quarter to see what that even looks like.
Yeah.
I'm interested myself.
Yes.
So you get stuff like this when you are a national drawing card, which right now Carolina is and will be right up until kickoff of that game. And then once it kicks off, you have to win on a consistent basis, not just that game. And then that'll establish how much of a drawing card you are going forward. But between now and that Monday night, the Tar Heels are one of, if not the biggest stories in college football.
it's amazing to see because that week 1 is absolutely stacked next year. It's one of the most stacked week 1s I can remember. I mean, you've got, I think, and I may miss some of these, but it's like Texas, Ohio State. I think Clemson and LSU play. There's just a lot of big. Colorado, I think, plays Georgia Tech. Locally, State and ECU play. So there's even like some local big games. It's just there's just a lot of nationally big draws in that week. And so for Carolina to be in that, I mean, they're listed. When people are listing all these games, it's like, plus you have TCU and Carolina. So heady times for sure for the Heels.
And fortuitous scheduling that Carolina's got a team on the schedule that people have heard of.
That's right.
And it's not, no offense to Charlotte, it's not Charlotte, who Carolina does play next year, because that would take you out of that picture.
Yeah.
But to have a team that's been a good program and had a lot of success.
Yeah, played in the national title game, 3 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, and the ACC had other games to choose from. LSU at Clemson, they would love to air that one. Notre Dame at Miami, that's a great
Notre Dame, Miami, that was one I couldn't remember.
Alabama at Florida State. I mean, these are all – Carolina's in that discussion in a way that, like, when you say State and East Carolina, I think, oh, that's nice.
Right.
But that's not in the same category of these other games.
Right.
And Carolina's moved out of that category, again, until you kick the ball off, and then you have to succeed on the field. Rest of the schedule coming next week, and we'll talk about it on Tuesday's show.
You have the 27th?
Monday night. Because the ACC, for some reason, thinks that the way you release a football schedule is over a span of 5 days.
What?
They're going to announce some stuff Thursday, some stuff Friday of this week, then take off Saturday and Sunday.
They did this last year too, didn't they?
And then have a show at 9 o'clock on Monday night. The prime time that everyone wants to think about their football schedule. Let's tune into the ACC network at 9 o'clock on a Monday and find out about this schedule. Again, they're trying something, but swing and a miss. So they'll release everyone's schedule on Monday night, and then we'll talk about it on Tuesday's show.
Adam, Bill Belichick's contract was signed. That was such a silly story. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit for people who are kind of casually paying attention for someone to put a headline that says, "Oh, he hadn't signed his contract yet," and that becomes like a huge deal. That was not a huge deal. It was very much within the normal process of how things work. Like a term sheet was signed, which is a legally binding thing. And it's just different. The University of North Carolina is not the Patriots. It's not a privately owned organization. There are some government state things that have to happen, which just slows the process down because of what it is. And so I'm glad that it happened. Just so people could stop acting like it was some kind of nefarious thing that was, oh, look, he didn't do that means he's going to the Cowboys and blah, blah, blah. And maybe he does. I have no clue. But it's not because of that. Like that was not a big deal.
Did you not hear Anson Dorrance when he retired say that there are some hoops you have to jump through on the employment side at a university? And those are some of the hoops that had to be jumped through.
And then, Adam, last thing I'll mention here, unless you have something else football-wise, is Carolina did announce these additions to the roster. And I think it was 21 was the ultimate number. That included some freshmen that had not signed in the original signing period and a bunch of transfers. I don't think it's all the transfers that the Tar Heels have, but the ones who have officially signed and enrolled and all those different things for Carolina. And so I think if you're like a Tar Heel football fan and you're following this day in and day out, then you knew all of these names. You had seen this. You knew this had happened. If you're kind of a casual Tar Heel fan, then maybe you didn't know this, and you didn't know that all this work had been happening, and that there would be this many new players with, again, I think more new to come. But I think on a global perspective, a lot of linemen in this group, both offensive and defensive linemen, which we've heard Michael Lombardi when we spoke to him. We've heard Lombardi and Bill Belichick when he's spoken publicly talk about building inside out. I think that means a couple different things, but I do think one of those things that it means is getting the line solid, the lines of scrimmage solid first. And so you saw a lot of linemen in there. We talked about Jacoby Criswell going into the portal. He's reportedly signed with East Tennessee State. We have seen Ryan Brown, a Purdue transfer quarterback. Bryce Baker, the freshman who was introduced out there at center court of the Smith Center a couple of weeks ago. He's in this group. So Tar Heels going to need some quarterbacks. And so those two certainly going to be in the conversation for Carolina at that position, I think, moving forward. So, again, I think if you have been following this, none of this is news. But it's now official, and it is something that maybe if you haven't been following the minutia day by day of what the program's been doing, it's a lot of guys that have been added to the roster.
I'll just throw this little nugget out there. I was talking to a former pod guest who has worked in the NFL in a scouting capacity. And this person said that several months ago they were looking at quarterback film of college players and said that they highlighted Ryan Brown, that he was better than he was getting credit for, and someone was going to get him in the transfer portal and be very pleasantly surprised. Well, that someone is the Tar Heels.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much flash is in this initial group of signings, but there might be some names there who are playing a very important role come fall. But I also think it's just a reminder, we're accustomed to the college football way of doing things, in which basically everything you do, you make a graphic about and shoot off some fireworks and shoot people out of cannons. This is an NFL way of doing things in which you really want to operate in the darkness as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. There is a significant difference in college and pro football in that way. You don't have to sell yourself in pro football. You are the Bears. You are the Commanders. You are the Giants, whoever. Like, there's only 32 of you. You don't have to sell people want desperately to be a part of your program. College football is different, where there are so many schools and so many, you are historically trying to make a big deal of all these things and like, hey, look at this 17-year-old who signed with us. It's the coolest thing. And that's how it's always been. That's a great way to put it, Adam. It does feel like Carolina's very much approaching this much more from the professional way, as we have heard Michael Lombardi when he's with us and many other places, and Bill Belichick in the limited opportunities that he has spoken publicly. That they are in the dark is a nice way to put it. Like they don't want other people to know what they're doing until they're playing them. Then they can see what they've been doing. That does seem like kind of how Carolina's been doing it. I mean, this is very much like even the release. It's like, here's the name of the player. Like I'll read Ryan Brown. It's like Ryan Brown, QB, 6'4", 210, which by the way, it's a pretty good sized quarterback. Clarkston, Michigan. And then there's about 4 to 5 bullet points of he's from Purdue. This is what he did last year. He's a native of this. His dad did this. It's like his dad, Jim, played football with Doug Flutie at Boston College. So, I mean, it's like, boom, there it is. Here are the bare facts and maybe one little interesting note about his dad playing with Doug Flutie. Now, you never think about him again until he's running over you for a touchdown at the goal line on one series and then throwing for a 50-yard score on the next one.
And even then, we won't admit that he's good. We'll just...
It's just so different. Everything about it's different. But as we've said, and this is no guarantee it's going to work, Carolina needed to do something different. And that's not a Mac Brown statement. That's a Carolina football statement. It just needed to do something different.
We've said on here many, many times before that just lining up and trying to do it how everyone else is doing it has not really ever worked for Carolina outside of a couple of years. And in my mind, I always thought the different thing is going to be like Paul Johnson running the triple option or something. Instead, it's the furthest thing from that, in which Carolina is just doing something on the opposite pole, and I'm excited to see how that works out. And I think so are casual Tar Heel fans and non-Tar Heel fans.
What is the actual date of that game, Adam?
September 1st.
Man, September 1st. Monday, September 1st. The countdown is on, Adam. Get that countdown clock working in here.
I think at some point you'll hear something about spring football.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure if the Tar Heels have a spring game, Adam, they'll be showing a lot in that game. Showing a lot of different formation. Probably like, okay, they'll look at the camera. Here are the 4 plays we're going to use in a goal-to-go situation from 7 or less yards.
At some point this spring, I think there'll be an opportunity to celebrate Tar Heel football and look forward to the fall.
In some form or another.
Right. I can't wait. I mean, how many times do you think Bill Belichick's even going to talk to the media after spring practice? 1 or 2? Those are going to be – I can't wait for those.
It is a new day for sure.
I don't think those practices are going to be open.
I doubt it. Will Carolina have any open practices? You're not required to.
Right.
I don't know. Do you think we can go to practice? I don't know.
Well, but the kind of weird thing is, like, NFL teams have open training camp and fans come.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe there'll be some element of that because that's the way it has been for them, I guess. Yeah. I assume the Patriots did that.